Hello and welcome to a new video. Today I'm here to do a belated BookTube-A-Thon wrap-up. So after the BookTube-A-Thon ended, I didn't get the chance to say what I read during the BookTube-A-Thon and what I thought of the books I read. So I'm gonna do that now, and I hope you are okay with that. I started the BookTube-A-Thon reading The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. This is a story about Star, who witnesses the death of her friend by a police officer, and it's a important, interesting, very painful story, but at the same time very interesting. They can deal with all of the aspects of it, the good and the bad in her life. It doesn't get depressing because it's a very realistic story in terms of dealing with all the other people that she has in her life, but it's also very painful to read what happens and how that story develops. And I gave this book 5 out of 5 stars. Then I read this little book called The Beautiful Cassandra by Jane Austen. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. This is a book with short stories written by Jane Austen when she was a teenager, I think around 13, something like that. And it's really interesting and also really very funny and sarcastic. Then I read this little pamphlet called Politics and the English Language by George Orwell. I bought this and I hold it in my mandatory mandatory reading hall, but I didn't get to it. We didn't get to it in class, so I thought this was a great read for the BookTube-A-Thon because it was really short. This is an essay on how the relationship between how the English language was at the time he was writing this, which I think is 1945, just after the Second World War ends, and politics. So the relationship and how the politics are reflected in the way people write, especially English in this time. And then I read the final book, the fourth book. This was a Portuguese historical fiction novel, Maria Francisca de Saboia by Diana de Cadaval. And this story, with a lot of flashbacks, tells the story of Maria Francisca de Saboia and this queen, who was married to two kings of Portugal, Afonso and Pedro. She annulled the marriage to the first one and then married the second one, and she was very ambitious, and there's not a lot written about her, especially in fiction, and so I thought I would give this one a go. I have a very detailed book review on Goodreads, which you can check out below, but I thought this was okay. It could have been done so much better, and I think other authors would have done it so much better, but this author is an amateur writer, I would say, even though she now has 3 published books. The way she tells the stories could be really interesting if done right, but I think we would have more insight into her life if it had been done in a more normal timeline. The thing that bugged me the most was that she continuously repeated a lot of information. I mean, either the editor didn't notice it or something like that. That being said, I think it's a story worth telling, and I'm glad I read it. 2 stars in Goodreads means like it was okay or something like that, but I think it could be so much more. It's also a really short book, which I was, at the time surprised and now disappointed with, because I think it could have more information, but not the way it was done, obviously. So for the way it was done, it obviously had to be less pages then, because then it would just be repetition after repetition. So yeah, those were all the 4 books I read during the BookTube-A-Thon. And these books completed 6 of the 7 challenges. So the only challenge I didn't complete was the Read 7 Books challenge, which is totally normal, as you probably know. The only year I managed to read 7 books was last year. I'm actually happy that I managed to almost complete all the challenges. I'm gonna tell you one by one the challenges and which book completed it. So the first challenge was read a book with a person on the cover, and that can be a face, can be a body, anything. And 2 books complete that, but I counted The Hate You Give with that because you have the face of a girl in the front, in the cover. Also, it counted as challenge number 2, a very hyped book, and The Hate You Give has been going around since January, something like that, since it was released or before that on BookTube and Bookstagram and everywhere basically, and everyone was raving about it and saying how good it was, and so I picked it up in June. Yeah, this one also completed that challenge, and also it completed the read a book with a character that's very different from you, and this again completes that challenge. Of course, Star, it's a very different person. She lives in a very different place, geographically, but also she's divided between two worlds basically. And I mean, I'm not black obviously, so I don't face the same problems and adversities she does in her life, and that was really important for me to read about, of course. And that, you know, just the setting where she lives and the people she hangs out with, both in her school and in her neighborhood, are very different from the people here. So I think, so yeah, more in her neighborhood than in her school. But basically, yeah, it was really interesting to read about a character that lives in these two separate worlds, and both are very particular to this story. Challenge number 3, because the last one I mentioned was number 4, is read a book and finish it in one day. And for that I have exactly the pamphlet by George Orwell, Politics and English Language. Of course I read this in one day because it's very, very short. This has 24 pages, and so yeah, I read it in a day. And this also completes the challenge of reading a book completely outdoors, which is challenge number 5. Yeah, because I was on my summer holidays, I was by the pool, and I read it completely outdoors, sitting by the pool. So that's always a great place to read a book. And number 6 was read a book that you bought mainly because of the cover. And that will probably go to this book, to the historical fiction, the Portuguese historical fiction, because I basically saw the cover and I recognized all the queens and kings and their portraits because I'm a history nerd. And so I saw this and I thought, oh my god, someone wrote a book about her, and I haven't seen that being done yet. And so I picked it up, and then I recognized the author, which is also on the cover, and I didn't even flip through it. I didn't read the first page, nothing like that. So I mainly bought because of the cover. I don't think it's ugly either, and I recognized what it was about right from looking at the cover, and so I got it. So that's how I got this book. So I read it for that challenge as well. This completed all the almost all the challenges in the BookTube-A-Thon, and these were all the books I read during the BookTube-A-Thon. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it wasn't very long because the reading I did was not much. Unfortunately, this year has not been a great reading year for me, but it has been a great year, so I'm not troubled with that. That being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, give it a thumbs up or subscribe down below. And I will see you soon with a new one. Bye!